What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today we're taking a look at the brand new Civivi Elementum Button Lock Utility Knife, long-awaited model from Civivi. In fact, they announced this one at Blade Show West last year, and so it's been about 6 months, but it is finally available. I picked this one up for $42.50, so a really great price point. It is sold out at a lot of retailers, but the Civivi Amazon store still has it in stock. Blade HQ still had it in stock at the time of recording. So I will link to a couple options in the description if you're looking for this model. Now, based off of Civivi's flagship model, the Elementum, if you're familiar with that, you'll kind of have a sense of what this is going to feel like in hand, but worth noting, they did scale it down in size a little bit, so it won't be identical. And that's probably because they wanted to keep the blade to handle ratio making sense, not have a bunch of extra handle. This is a smaller blade and smaller cutting edge than we got on the original Elementum, so it only makes sense that they scaled it down, but it still does come in at nearly 6 inches, 5.91 inches overall. 3.65 inches on the handle. What that equates to for me is about a 3-finger grip if I'm staying behind that flipper tab in your standard grip. More often than not, I like to creep up as close to that cutting edge as possible, so if I jump in front of that flipper tab, I'm able to get 4 fingers on there very comfortably, and it's a very comfortable grip overall. But this is a utility knife, and most likely I'm going to be using it for utility cuts, so not really the standard knife grip that you would normally carry a knife in. I'm more likely to be up behind this tip and more of a pinched grip, and this is very comfortable. The size really doesn't come into play here. Even if it were smaller, I think it would be very comfortable. So this is the grip I'm grading it on, and I think a really comfortable grip overall. It just works, and my thumb really isn't anywhere near that button where I can accidentally disengage that lock and have this close up on me. So great grip there. The weight on this is 2.31 ounces. A lot of that comes down to the aluminum handle, so aluminum's pretty lightweight, and I got it in the green because I love the particular shade of anodization of this green. If it's not your style though, it is available in some other colors, black, blue, and gray, and I'd imagine if this is even close to as popular as the original Elementum, we'll see additional colors pop up, maybe different materials, and possibly even different configurations. Maybe they'll swap out that button lock for a liner lock, or maybe they'll delete that flipper tab and have a thumb stud only deployment. Who knows, but really happy with those kind of initial offerings. And I should mention with that price point, $42.50, I think I said it was pretty budget friendly, and that's comparing it to other knife style utility knives, things like that we've checked out on the channel recently, like the Riot XOU or that Boker Kalashnikov Blade Ops exclusive utility knife, are going to be a little bit pricier. If you compare it to a hardware store utility knife, of course it's more pricey, but the market for these are people that are into knives, people that already like the Elementum and are spending knife prices, and at those prices $42.50 I think is very affordable. So just wanted to get that caveat out the way, because there's always someone who's going to mention, you know, that it's not as cheap as a Milwaukee Fastback, and of course not, but it's also a lot sleeker and easier to carry. But let's get into that utility blade right off the bat. So you see it's branded Civivi on there, bead blasted. This is Civivi's own utility blade. They say it's a little bit sharper than your standard utility blade, but it's compatible with standard utility blades, which is important because although it ships with a blade and 3 replacements, eventually you're going to run out. You don't want to have to always order them from Civivi, and being able to just go to any hardware store and grab them is a great option. So it is compatible, and it also ships with an additional T8 screw, which comes into play when we talk about changing that blade out. So compared to the other options that we talked about, like the XOU and the Boker Kalashnikov, both of those had quick blade swap technologies in them where you can swap them out in about 10 seconds. This one requires a T8 screw in order to change it, so not only does it take a little bit longer, it's still pretty quick, probably 45 seconds or less, not significantly longer, but you have to carry an additional tool. You also risk losing the screw and not having a replacement on you and being out a utility cutter for the day. And so those are both major trade-offs that for me, I don't think is really the end of the world, but if you're someone who's carrying this on the job and maybe you have to swap blades daily or even every couple days, that could be pretty tedious to have to carry an extra tool, and also just take the time to swap that blade out in an environment that may not be the cleanest, easy to lose screws. And so if you're getting this for on the job, I think that's a major factor. For me, I would just wait till I got home to change it, so not the end of the world. But the big trade-off there is you get a ton more blade edge on both of those other options mentioned. You're getting maybe an inch of cutting edge, maybe maybe slightly less even. On this one, you're getting over 2¼ inches or so. You can see we're losing about 1/4 just to make sure that's locked in tight, but you still get about 2¼ inches of cutting edge. So if that's worth it to you, you do have a lot more. Now that's gonna keep you from doing the swap where you just flip the blade around. You actually probably do want to have a replacement with this one, but everything's a little bit of a trade-off. And so I think it's kind of cool to have something a little bit different than my other options. Now getting into deployment, this is going to be a super accessible knife, super fidgety because it has several different deployment methods. We'll start with that flipper tab, plenty of access to it. You can see it's got some jimping on that top side, and the detent on this is pretty well dialed in where you get a nice snappy action on the flipper tab, really satisfying and works well. Now, if you are someone who likes to use your button locks to not only disengage the lock, but actually deploy the blade, that's an option as well. So you can just press down on that, flick your wrist and let go. It'll lock into place, drop it back in. And so really easy to just kind of flip in and out. I don't tend to use my button locks as a deployment method, but if you do, it's certainly an option. And then last but not least, we have our thumb studs on either side. And you can see there's a little bit of a recess here where you get more access to that thumb stud. None of my Elementums have that. I'm not sure if there have been configurations. There's been so many Elementums released that it's possible there have been some, but none of my Elementums actually have that. So that's also new to this utility blade version. And so plenty of access to that, and the detent feels even better on the thumb stud than it does that flipper tab. So nice and snappy action. I'm not able to spidey flick this one, but someone might. I think the detent's just a little bit heavy for that. Yeah, just a little bit heavy for that. But that thumb stud flick, nice and snappy and feels great. Now with that being said, I personally wouldn't mind a flipper tab delete. I know some people really like it. For me, I do like it and I do use it. That's one of the kind of go-tos that I do just because it's there. But I just hate how it interrupts your grip here and keeps you closer to that blade. It's pushing me up towards that blade when I'm sitting on top of it. I know I'm supposed to be behind it, but I am almost always going to creep on top of it. And so without that there, I think I'd have a more comfortable grip in your standard knife grip. But as mentioned earlier, more likely than not, I'm using this behind the tip in that pinch grip anyway. So not the end of the world, but if they did make a flipperless version in the future, I would definitely check that out. Now, as far as pocket clip goes, we have our standard Civivi pocket clip. So deep carry, really nice pocket clip, good retention, easy in and out the pocket, non-offensive pocket clip for sure. And it is reversible, so right or left hand tip up carry. No plug, and I really wouldn't expect a plug at this price point, so that doesn't bother me, but there is no plug here. And then we have our lanyard hole in the back. Nice placement on that. I always like when they're kind of back here where it's less likely where your lanyard's gonna flip into that cutting edge when you're closing it up. Although I don't typically put lanyards on my knives anyway, so not really a factor for me. We have that Civivi pivot and T8 body screws, which is really nice to go with that T8 blade chain screw. And again, you do get an extra T8 blade chain screw. For me, I think if you really want to, you can pair this. Civivi has their own little keychain bit driver. There's plenty of companies that have it, so I don't think it would be the end of the world. I'd just be more worried about losing the screw than anything. But overall, I think this is a really cool option, great price point. I'm excited to see it. I think they mentioned they may have some at Blade Show Atlanta as well if you're going to be going, but like I said, there's still online retailers that have this in stock. So if you're interested in checking it out, definitely check out those links in the descriptions. Most likely, most of them will be affiliate links, so they will help the channel out at no additional cost to you. But of course, feel free to not use them if for whatever reason you don't want to support the channel. But let me know what you think of this knife down in the comments below. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, joining the channel as a member. I do put out weekly member exclusive videos as well as some other content on the member side. So thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great one. Take care.